Fight and Talk UK. I've got a very special guest this evening. He is part of the longest promoting bare knuckle show, not just in England, not just in Europe, in the world. Jim Freeman, welcome to Fight and Talk UK. Thank you for coming on.
No problem at all, mate. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Jim, take me back. Obviously, I was around sort of in the very early days before when it was called BBAD. When do you remember like first getting involved? Obviously, there was the Vice documentary, and I think it was about then that you and Joe were sort of around trying to do a deal with Andy Joines Toplift, or it was at the time. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. So obviously, you know, I've been aware of the sort of scene. I went to the Jason Young, James McCory one. You know, obviously there's a lot of myth and talk about how that was. The night was a bit of a shambles, in truth. You know, like they made up this kind of story of like James getting drunk and being in a taxi to Newcastle. It ended up about 4 fights, and you're waiting around for ages. And half the crowd had actually gone by the time that fight happened. So that was my first experience, and I just thought, in truth, I just thought, oh, this is a load of old bollocks, really. And I just thought, you know, there's nothing kind of here. And then sort of Joe was managing Decker Heggie to start with then, and then he took it on. And the first show that Joe did was down in Wales, in the sort of hay bales, and it was a bit of a stupid thing where it's like, just turn up, don't do tickets. And I was actually running the bar and all that kind of side of it then. And obviously hardly anyone turned up, because if you didn't have a ticket, you know, you just didn't fancy traveling all the way down to Wales. So it ended up as a bit of a shambles. And I spoke to Joe and I said, listen, Joe, I said, I think I can get involved and do something with you here. But we need to get rid of them stupid hay bales. There's no history of, you know, fighting bare knuckle or anything in hay bales. It's just a nonsense. We need to get it in a ring, do it properly, rah, rah. And it just kind of went from there. So that was the sort of the start of it, really.
So did you two approach, obviously it was Andy Joines Toplift who started that. Did you two approach Andy about like doing something with him, or was it like a complete, like, we want to take the name and then take it further, kind of like the UFC did when Dana White bought that and they took it to the next level, if you like?
There was nothing really to buy. There was just a silly Facebook page. I think Joe gave Andy like a nominal fee, like a couple £100 for the Facebook followers. And we just basically started our own page from there under the same name. There was, like I said, there was nothing really to kind of, you know, take. You know, there was not a lot really kind of happening. You know, like I said, there's a kind of mythical thing of what it was like in them sort of days, but it wasn't really a lot, really. I'll be honest with you. I think sort of a lot of the travel nights of that time and before were a lot better organised than what that sort of that was.
Definitely. Did you find, obviously I found in the transition when it went from that to like you were doing it professionally in a ring, there was a lot of people who wanted it to stay how it was and who liked that kind of style. And there was a lot of bitchiness, shall we say, at the beginning. Like,
yeah, because obviously people wanted it where they could compete, you know, like obviously where we were going, you know, you needed money to compete. So there's a lot of people, it was in their interest to do it, you know. Hay bales don't cost anything. You know, if you're paying your fighters pennies and getting barroom swingers, you can kind of compete. Obviously, where you are now, it's kind of sort of chalk and cheese of sort of what it was. You know, I know respect for the guys that were around them doing them days, because, you know, some of them guys were perhaps a little bit less skilled than what the guys are now. It takes a lot bigger cojones, you know, and you know, in them days, it was really hard to attract someone to do bare knuckle fighting. You know, the first couple of years we had, it was hard graft. You know, like a lot of people were like, nah, I'm not doing that. You know, it was real hard graft. So it was a real small pool of people that you were sort of dealing with.
would you say, obviously, your show, particularly your show, has opened up the bare knuckle across the world, basically? Because I know the BKFC guy, he come to one of your shows in Newcastle, didn't he? And you were kind of the blueprint for that.
Yeah, well, 100%. There's absolutely no doubt about that, because, you know, at the time we'd gone from sort of, you know, building up, we'd gone Colwick Hall, you know, sort of wedding marquee. We've done leisure centres. We've done, you know, the Fed Brewery in Newcastle, and we went up sort of leisure centres in Coventry, and, you know, kind of up and up Liverpool Arena. And then we got to the O2. So before they even started it in America, you know, we was already at the O2. And when they started to look at doing it in America, the commissions over there were actually in touch with the O2 to find out how it kind of went. So there's absolutely no doubt. I know, like, the Americans like to reinvent the wheel and they like to claim everything. But there's absolutely no doubt, like most sports, the birthplace is here in the UK. That's it. Facts.
100%. Well, we'll talk about the Vice documentary. Did that do anything for the promotion, or or was that something you wanted to sort of steer it away from? You know, like you said, when James turned up, he was late. He had come all the way from Newcastle. Obviously, his lift didn't turn up on the day, but they kind of make it more mythical, like you say. I think you described it quite well.
Yeah. Like, obviously, you know, we wanted to present it to make it as like a safe sport. You know, and again, that's not disrespecting it. You know, Dave Courtney's been with us since day one. You know, like he still comes to every single show. He's been one of our biggest fans. And his role's kind of adjusted more sort of in the background. But, you know, I've got top respect for him, you know, and sort of guys, some guys have fell off and some guys have sort of stayed with us in terms of that. But yeah, we had to move it away from, you know, the stories of gangsters, you know, underground, you know, if we wanted to take it in a sport, that the early days was really hard graft to take it away from that. And to break that sort of perception that it was naughty geezers and, you know, it was really dangerous and that, you know, we had safety element and we had to write rules and, you know, we're quite proud that we did that. You know, the Vice documentary made people aware of it. You know, at the end of the day, it was watched by a lot of people, but it played up to a lot of the stereotypes that, you know, bare knuckle still would. And listen, that still goes on now. You know, we had a show Sunday and we've been in the Sun, the Mail, ESPN. There's about 4 different national broadcasters, and it was all the gruesome sport at the O2 and all that kind of stuff, because it's just kind of a lazy journalist kind of story that they you know, want to portray us, really.
How many, like, you've been a promoter, I'm going to say it's nearly 10 years now. I can't be far off 10 years with you and Joe, maybe more. How many people have you actually seen? Because we always had this debate at the beginning that bare knuckle boxing was safer than gloved boxing. How many people on the show that you know of have had like injuries that have affected them for life? Because I don't really know anyone, or no one who complains about them anyway.
There's absolutely no one in here under the rule set. Now, see again, so we're about 80 shows in. The Americans have done about 30 shows, and they've actually had a death over there from it. So again, you know, that trying to reinvent the wheel, trying to mismatch stuff, like all fighting, it's got an element of danger. So I used to be able to come on these sort of things and go, it's really safe, when it was just kind of us doing it. No serious injuries, other than, you know, a few superficial wounds, broken hands, bits and pieces like that. You know, it's reasonably safe. It's, you know, there's an element of danger. It's a combat sport, but it doesn't have that repetition of, you know, brain injuries that you get in glove boxing and all that kind of stuff, because, you know, your wounds stop the fight long before that happens. But obviously with that happening in America, it kind of kills my, you know, my speech about it all, no pun intended there. You know, it means I can't now longer say that. But this is the danger, you see, like, you know, these sort of things, when people come in and they start looking at it as more the money side of it, you know, and don't get me wrong, you know, that's going to eventually come. But if you're trying to get a return on your investment now, you end up with these mismatches with guys that sell lots of tickets, put lots of bums on seats, lots of views, and you're throwing them to the wolves, these guys that are literally miles apart in talent. And it's dangerous. It's not a smart thing that people should be doing. And, you know, you shouldn't be playing like that. You know, people have got to be well matched.
Is BKFC, like, obviously, because they've grown quite quickly, they've obviously got a lot of money behind them. Have they directly affected like the matchmaking or anything for your shows? Because obviously they come here and they try and get, you know, all the fighters that are popular at the time. I mean, maybe Danny Christie was quite popular because of that fight with Decker, obviously. So they kind of look like they're picking fighters that might be popular on YouTube or something, and then trying to get them with maybe money deals that we can't quite offer in the UK yet because of obviously crowd size and everything else, Jim.
I don't think there's any big more money. You know, those sort of guys are not getting the money they'd led you to believe. Obviously, that's a lot of fighter egos. We're still very competitive with our money. The problem you've got a lot of fighters, in truth, is a lot of these guys have got big reputations they don't want to lose. You know, you mentioned Decker Heggie there. I don't know Danny. You mentioned Decker. He definitely doesn't want to fight any live opponent. You know what I mean? He doesn't want to fight anyone that he can potentially lose to. So that's more the reason that they do that, because they've had TikTokers, they've had, you know, glove bouts, they've had all kinds of gimmicky nonsense stuff. And yeah, listen, it's lots of eyes looking at the sport, but is it eyes looking at the sport in the right way? You know, whereas with our guys, you don't get them sort of gimmicky fights. Listen, we have a mixture of talent. We've got some of the best fighters in the world, and we've got some not so good fighters, but they're matched at the level. You know, we don't put them not so good fighters with the world class ones. And I think in other organisations, you get the luxury of being able to have a little bit more say of what you're going to get matched up with. So you can make it look like I'm a bare knuckle bad boy and all this kind of stuff without actually challenging yourself. And that's what you find. And that's why some people do go, don't get me wrong, they're paying some good money to huge names in terms of MMA names, but your average, person over here ain't getting that kind of money. It's just not happening.
No, that's fair enough. I mean, they've got to be able to sell a load of tickets to start and everything, haven't they? It's not quite as easy as people think. Would it be fair to say, I'm talking of fighters who don't brag or anything, like Jimmy Sweeney has definitely been one of your top fighters over the last 2018, did he make his 2017?
I think it's actually 2016, 2017 at Kettering Town. A lot of people know this, some people don't. Me and Jimmy are actually pals outside of this. We was pals before bare knuckle. We'll be pals when he finishes after as well. So obviously I brought Jimmy into the sport. I know being a traveller, bare knuckle really suits them guys. They're sort of bred animals in this kind of sport. Loyal guy, great guy, 30 fights into it. People ask me in the early days, how can I have a longevity in bare knuckle career? Well, we got a geezer with 30 fights. And when we're talking earlier about people ducking people, trying to build up records of fighting people they know they're going to beat, Jimmy's quite the opposite. You know what I mean? Like, in the early days, he used to felt I was like mugging him off because we didn't have anyone close to his talent for him to fight. So, he'd find he'd not get motivated for it. He's a true guy. And if anyone talks about legends and all the nonsense in the sport, if you don't mention Jimmy Sweeney first and foremost, then you've got it all wrong, really.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to be honest. Most of his fights have been brutal. Especially like you say, the later ones, the last few, especially against the Welsh fella. I mean, the first one, that Welsh fella hit hard, didn't he? In that first fight he had with him. Wow. Never seen Jimmy open up like that before. It's unbelievable. The talent that's coming through at the moment on your show is unbelievable.
Yeah, we might have some of the guys not the best profiles, but we've still got the best fighters in most of the weights. It's just a fact, it's how it is, and it's credit for us. And you're talking about the American organisation. We don't try and actively poach them. There's plenty of fighters to kind of go around, and we only want fighters who really want to fight for us. There's lots of fighters who've gone from us and fought straight away for the titles over there and whatnot. It all depends how you want to do it. For us, it's all about getting the credit of being a fighting man like it was 20, 30 years ago, where the best person from a different family can be the best person from the other family, and you genuinely shook hands after it. Nowadays it's all a little bit, and it's mirrored in the professional sport. Is it kind of the underworld element of it, where a lot of fights don't happen. You get lots of talk, lots of call outs. I'm here, where are you? You're missing me. And they don't end up ever fighting. If they do fighting, they don't take any risky fights. And it's not like it was even in that sort of traveling community and fair fights like it was lots of years ago, because people just don't want to lose.
No, yeah, that's right. Well, this is a very bitchy business, as you know full well yourself. But I just want to point out, obviously you and Joe have had a very trusting relationship. What do you think's made the relationship with you two succeed, and obviously ultimately help BKB TM succeed as well?
We just like a bit of banter. We're both just kind of normal guys, both probably a little bit boring when you look at a kind of a story, and everyone likes their kind of journey. We've both had it kind of tough, both come from sort of nothing. But outside of that, we both got a couple of kids, family, married 20 odd years, white middle-aged males. You know what I mean? We're quite boring, but we've both kind of just get on, and I suppose we just got a bit of honesty. Joe trusts me implicitly. I trust Joe implicitly. There's, like you said, there's loads of obviously mud that's all thrown around, but I'll tell you now, you won't get a more honest, straight talking person than Joe. You know what I mean? Anyone who says any different is just talking absolute bollocks. And the guy's done so much for the sport in terms of bringing in terms of elevating it. None of the guys would get any shine or any credit around the world if it weren't for Joe on that. So I think there's credit where it should be deserved, and that's rightly at his door in truth.
Do you two, every year, do you have a target, at the end of this year, will you have a target, what you want to do or what you want to achieve for next year? Is that how you work every year? Give yourself extra to do, or?
No, people would think because obviously, we're both kind of decent business people, that's the case. It actually isn't. So up to sort of when COVID hit, it was kind of like we were just kind of starting to get serious the last couple of shows before COVID. And then it was kind of like COVID hit, and you remember it was fucking ball late. No one could put on shows. Eddie Hearn was having shows in his garden. No one else was having shows. We managed to get approved as an elite sport, which was fantastic for the sport. And I've still got the paperwork for that. And that'll be something I'm proud of forever. We had 2 shows during COVID, but really it put a massive pause on it. But we're actually starting to get serious now. So the first shows out of COVID, we're just like, oh, thank God we can get shows on. We're actually going to treat it like a bit of a proper business now, like we would any other element of what we've done, and actually run it like a business. In terms of having plans, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plans of what we're going to achieve, and get kind of serious and get competitive with this now, because you know we've been playing up to now and we've done really well playing, but now is the time for no more bullshit. Let's really go for it with this sport.
So any like up and coming fighters, how do they try and get on for you guys? Do they have to have a few fights elsewhere first, or is it just a case of approaching your matchmaking team?
Yeah, well, the matchmaking team, you're talking to it. That's pretty much me. So I match all the fights.
I'll tell you what, you do a good job, mate. Like, you've always done a good job at it. Like, for someone who never really done it before, the matchmaking just got better and better over the years. So congratulations on your matchmaking. It's been brilliant.
I appreciate that, and that's ultimately what we want. The rest of the stuff is just fucking smokes and mirrors for that. You know, what you want is a good tidy scrap, isn't it? 2 lads going at it. So, you know, in terms of fighter pool, obviously we had a show Sunday. We've got a guy fighting for the Police Gazette title in America in November. We've got a show December the 3rd. Then we're in Thailand in January. You've got an exclusive here. Looks like we're going to be in Dubai in February.
Wow.
So things are starting to heat up, but we're actually fighter rich, you know, like what I was telling you the early days, where it was like it was an absolute ball like getting people to do it, and you were paying a massive premium to get them to do it. Honestly, my inbox, there's not a day goes by where someone doesn't message me about fighting. You know, we've got lots and lots of good fighters. You know, there's not an issue at all with fighters. I'll pop a post going, you know, I want a fighter at 88 kilo, and I'll get 20 guys step forward. You know, literally of them 10 at least are really credible. So, you know, it shows how keen are everyone to get involved in the sort of bare knuckle scene, which is it's a complete 180 turn of where we were sort of 7-8 years ago with that. So yeah, but yeah, look, I'm still open. You know, you'd be ignorant for me to say, you know, we've got loads of people and that we can always add 1 or 2 and, you know, move things around and, you know, get people in that have got a certain element to offer. But like I said, if you don't want to build with us, and if you don't want to sign a 3-year contract, and you don't want to have 50-50 fights, then don't message me, because you're not the person that we're going to look for, and it's going to end up like you're not going to enjoy being with us. We want guys that want to fight everyone, and every challenge that's accepted, and ultimately to be the best in their weight class. That's what we want. That's it.
Do you still? I personally still. I mean, obviously, I've seen the show from the early days up until now. I still rate it as the top show and produced matchmaking. I still rate it as the top one. Obviously, in the UK, there's a lot of other shows coming up. They're quite small. Is that fair to say that you as well? You guys agree with that? You're the number one.
I think our shows are the best in terms of fight quality. Are we the best in terms of production? No. Do we have the biggest names currently? No. Do we have the biggest social following? No. Have the Americans done lots of good bits? Yes. Have we? Do I firmly believe we still got the best fighters? Yes. Do I firmly believe when you come to a BKB TM night, you get good fights from number 1 to number 12? Yes. So, you know, ultimately, what do you go there? You know, like, I'm a football guy. If I go to football to watch a good football match. You know, I don't give a fuck too much about, you know, the beer's an extra £1, or, you know, they're all little elements, or I sit in a nice little posh seat or something. I go to watch a good game of football. And if you take away all the other things, that's really what you do. So what you get in our nights is you get a good night of action. You know, fight 1 can be as good as fight 12. And we still got a lot of people who follow the scene, who come to the shows, regardless who's on the card.
We're just talking about Jimmy Sweeney. Is there any plans for him to is he taking a bit of time out, or is he getting straight back to the chopping board, so to speak?
No, I said to him, so obviously, you know, he lost to Barry. He had a lot of scar tissue anyway. But he knew he wouldn't possibly have got a rematch if he'd not asked for one. Barry, again, is a top gentleman. We got some really good lads. They agreed to the rematch. Jimmy, his eye opened up pretty much sort of straight away. I told him, Jimmy, you know, you're in the twilight of your career now. Do yourself a favour. Take a little bit of time out. Get that scar tissue sorted before thinking about having a fight. But as a fighting man, he doesn't want to go out like that. So I'm sure you'll get Jimmy have 2 or 3 more fights next year. Give it one good year. And then that'll be him done and pass the mantle on. And, you know, it's a shame for someone like Jimmy, because when you're talking about money, you know, he's never going to earn the money that his talent and what he did for the sport deserved. But unfortunately, that's the way it is when you're a bit of a pioneer, and the Finns are at the beginning, aren't they?
But he will pave the way. So he has paved the way for the future generations. I know that's no good to his bank balance now, so to speak, but he has definitely paved the way, as so have you as well. I mean, that first two shows I went to, the ones that were in the real dungy places, they didn't even get paid, you know. I don't think James and Dave Radford, their first fight, they didn't get paid for that, you know. So so you can so you took it that far that they're guaranteed to get paid, you know, they're looked after. It's great to see how far the sport's come in a short space of time, because it is really, isn't it, 10 years?
Yeah, well, 8 years for sort of us, you know, sort of 2014, 15 time, I think it was. So yes, it's been kind of that. And obviously when you take out the 2 years of kind of COVID, it's even been more explosive growth, isn't it? You know, like, you know, because you know what it's like in the UK, it was near on impossible to do anything, wasn't it? So it literally has got a pause button on everything. But, you know, sort of international shows next year, and hopefully the pay scales go up. But, you know, one thing across the board in bare knuckle is no one's making any money off the lads. So what you're getting paid is kind of what you deserve. It's not like you fight for the UFC and they're making 6 billion. You know, every bit of money is kind of going, like, for us, I can look anyone in the eye and go, 100% of what we're taking in is going to you guys. You know, all the other stuff is still kind of being funded by us as we grow, you know, as we take a bit more, and that's kind of going to the pay scales, just to kind of see how far we can take this. You know, ultimately people are like, well, you got to be doing it for something. Yeah, we are. We're doing it to the opportunity that it's going to be worth something big in the future, and someone comes in and buys the whole kind of thing and takes it to another level beyond our financial means, and then guys can earn real top money. Obviously that's the aim. It might not work out like that, but, you know, who knows? That's where you'll get a return on the investment. If it don't happen, we've plowed a lot of money into it, we've had a lot of fun over the time, and like you said, you know, we can look back and go, well, whatever happens there on after for the sport, we was at the forefront of that for a very long time.
But we've got no plans for that yet, Jim, have we? You've got years ahead of you. Years ahead of you.
Yeah. It is stress. I did have dark hair, and I looked about 10 years younger when we started this. So yeah, it does fucking stress you out, I must admit.
Well, people don't realise, like, the pressure you're under behind the scenes, especially on, like, fight day, you know, or the week building up, when you get pull-outs, or, you know, anything can happen. And we know some fighters, you know, they train hard, but they also can live I don't know, should we say, a vivacious lifestyle. I've had fighters that breaking their hands the night before in a pub fight or something. It's crazy.
Yeah, we've had guys come to the weigh-in, and then pull out a mysterious injury. We had a guy that now is on BKFC do that. He literally turned up for his weigh-in, did his weigh-in. We've got all pictures of him with his hands up, doing his pictures, doing his face off, and he's like, "Oh, I broke my hand." What the fuck? You forget that? You know, like, it's just, yeah. Some of the stories, I think, at one point will make a sort of great book of you know, funny kind of stories of what had happened and over the years. There's some real stuff, and like I said, it's been a steep learning curve, because I come from a sort of mentality where if you say you're going to do something, you do it, and a person's word is still better than a contract. But I've learned in this that that's just not the case. It means absolutely fuck all, really.
The fighters like getting contracts from you and stuff like that. Obviously, you give them contracts, don't you, fighters?
Yeah, we do. We've had, you know, so we had a couple of people who leave break their contract and go. And in the early days, I was kind of like, you know, for years we didn't even do contracts. But in the early days, I was like, you know what, fuck it. If they think they're better off, let them go. What harm's it going to do? But then you do get to a point where you think, well, I've got to enforce this contract because it's a bit muggy. You know, like for instance, if you, again, I put everything in football terms. If you signed in, say, Birmingham City, you're a Birmingham City player, you're on contract, you want to leave to go to Manchester United. Well, Birmingham City still get compensated for you going to Manchester United because for building you up to get there. So even if you want to do that, there has to be some sort of element in return for them doing that for you. So we're in a position now where we will enforce contracts and stuff. But for the first few guys that did it, we just didn't, because I didn't want to be that guy, because it's a small career. They're not earning fortunes. But then on the flip side, at some point, I have to protect our investment in people, because ultimately that goes back into other people. You know, so it's not like, oh, you're being greedy, you're taking money out of a fighter, because we ain't making any profits. We ain't making any profit. Any money we get back in goes back into the pool for the other fighters. And ultimately, just fucking be a man, isn't it? Just keep your word. If you're going to say something, just don't be muggy about it.
And to be fair, Jim, I mean, for the first couple of years, you guys were the only ones doing it, weren't you, for quite a while? And then others sort of started come along and started their own thing. So you were really the only company at the beginning being able to match make fighters for bare knuckle.
Yeah, definitely. There was a period of that, and then it really kind of went quick because again, one thing where you look quite kind of successful and everyone's going, fuck me, this bare knuckle's taking off, and we're seeing it all the time. We see it in America now as well. People think, oh, they must be doing it. And then that's why you're seeing so many companies who come in, do one show, two shows, and then disappear because they think, actually, fuck, everyone's doing their nuts on this. There actually isn't any money being made at the minute. So, and obviously we've got a certain pay scale. So if you come into the game, if you're not going to match our pay scale, then you're not going to do any good. And, no one's really going to be bothered about you. Yep.
It's good promotion as well.
Yeah.
For the fighters.
It's a good, like I said, was in the national news only this week. So, like if you want your media kind of stuff, there's that involved. We've got a good platform, and a good solid base that you can build. And, the one thing with us is, and that's the biggest difference between other companies. It's all right going, oh, I'm going to get this, I'm going to do that. But how often are you fighting? Our guys are regularly out. Our guys are out 3 or 4 times a year minimum. So our good lads, our regular lads, are fight on any card they want to fight on, which is a massive difference in some other places.
Have you got any guys who have been just maybe had 1, 2, 3 fights that you can see potentially being like a future Jimmy Sweeney, or any younger lads you're looking at the moment thinking they could go quite far in this?
We got a right mixture of lads. So, for instance, we had an 18-year-old who fought Sunday. Harvey Dossett was in fight of the night, did really well. It predominantly was in the early days. And you remember it was the guys like Dave Radford and the people like that were at the tail end of their career, a kind of final hurrah. So we have we've still got them lads, that have done bits, but we've also got 18-year-olds coming through. So it's a real good mixture of people. We've got Mason Shaw fighting on the next card. He's a bit of a veteran of bare knuckle. He's probably coming up to 10 fights now, but the geezer's still only 26 years old. You know what I mean? So it's not like the old days where it was all people, and let's be honest, it was predominantly over 35s, white, and that was pretty much the fight card, wasn't it? If you remember the early days.
Definitely.
We've got literally every kind of, we've had over 100 countries represented in BKB TM over the years. Like that's like half the planet have had, people represented with us with different things. We've had people from all over, so it's kind of a sort of welcome thing with that now.
You and Jim, you and Joe, obviously don't really get involved with all the stuff on YouTube or anything like that. That's what I like about you. Just focus on your own show basically, and on your own fighters.
Yeah. I'm not. I just it gets a bit tiresome, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? Like you see some of them call outs back and forth and call outs and this and slagging off, and don't get me wrong, we get slagged off plenty. Like there's plenty of people who say like, fucking hell, that Jim's a right cunt and Joe's a right cunt. 99% of it's unfounded. Do you know what I mean? Like there is occasional we fucked something up for someone or something, but 99% of the time it's not. It does piss you off sometimes, and trust me, I want to get on there and go fuck your mother, and I'm give them loads of shit back. But you just got to think like, was it really? I'm like that bothered after that 5-minute flutter about it? Do I really want to get involved in some fucking social media chit chat with someone? Do they affect my life? Not really. Let them get on and just rise above. The early days it was difficult because, like I said, I had been used to it. I've been used to it a little bit in the football world. Where you get a little bit sort of slagged off a little bit, but yeah, a little sometimes, and especially it's like when someone's lying, that's what really fucks you off, and you really want to say your piece. But yeah, I just want it to be about the fighters and the fights predominantly. Like I said, it's not always been the case, but that's the focus. Is just a good night. You come and you enjoy it. You get a good night. You bring your missus, you bring your kids. You have a good night. You watch some fights. You respect the lads getting in there because ultimately they're doing what most of us wouldn't. And they're giving it a fucking right go. It's not like the early days where you'd get some fights and it was the first one who got a good thump in and won the fight. These lads are taking one, giving one. They're proper trained athletes. And most of them are still holding down full-time jobs and they should get a lot of respect. They're expected to be full-time athletes while still doing full-time jobs. You know what I mean? They're in that kind of element where they're not sort of top boxers or top UFC fighters and all them sort of lads that are earning enough money they don't have to work. They still have to go work on a Monday with their hands all fucked and all this. So they're a special breed of person, aren't they?
100%. And I can't let you go quickly. Just I want to. You said about you got the show in Thailand. Was it December? You said December.
January. So we're back
January.
to go to in December.
Are you taking fighters from here over to Thailand to fight? Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah, so we'll probably have like a 9 or 10 undercard fight from local guys there. You know, that'll be from like Thailand, Kazakhstan, Russia, all that kind of thing. That are just gonna go and have it. That'll be a bit unknown, and then we're probably gonna have 4 or 5 fights, which I'm thinking are probably going to be sort of Europe versus America. So we'll run it that a bit like a sort of Ryder Cup, but it will be a BKB card. I'll be there, Joe will be there, the team will be there. You know what I mean? And we'll have a few fighters over as well of names that are recognisable to give lads the opportunities, that they can fight in places like they'd never dreamt of before. And that's what we want, exciting opportunities for the lads. And like I say, then we're looking at going to Dubai and stuff as well. So there's just opportunities for the lads to do stuff they're not able to in the rest of their fight career.
That's amazing. That's amazing for the boys. It's amazing for the promotion as well, especially Thailand, Dubai. Congratulations. Well done on everything, Jim. Thank you for coming on. It's been absolutely amazing. I could chat to you all night.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I love it. I love this. I love some of the early guys, and we still got some people. Dave Monroe springs to mind. Due Midnight and stuff from the early days that still fans, still involved, and I love that. We've lost lots along the way. A lot of people get, because obviously it evolved and changed, and it wasn't like 100 of us all sitting in a room and they didn't kind of like that sort of thing, and for whatever reason they fell off. But we have got some guys in the early days, and I like the guys that have appreciate what's happened and what's sort of been done in that time frame, and what the fighters have done as well. So no, I appreciate it. So hopefully you can I thank you having me on your podcast. Hopefully you come to the show if you want to come. Bring a couple of pals or your missus, whatever you want. Have a couple of tickets on me. Come and see December, and you can see full circle of where it was gone from the early days to sort of now.
I look forward to that. Thank you very much.
No problem.
All right, mate. I'll speak to you soon. I'll definitely come along in December. I look forward to it, and I'll keep in touch with you about that Thailand trip as well. That sounds fantastic. Amazing for all the fighters.
Absolutely.
Jim Freeman, thank you for coming on Fighting Talk UK, my friend.
Top man. Thanks for having me on.
No worries. Speak to you soon, buddy. Thank you.
Take care, mate.